Hello, this is Dave W7UUU, and today we're with Steve Blacksten, AD7VL. So go ahead and take it away, Steve.
Oh, hi, Dave. And my name's Steve Blacksten. Born in 1936 and born and raised in Seattle, Washington. And I have a little question here. It says, how did I get involved in ham radio? Well, really and truly, it all started when I was about 9 years old. And I was in fourth grade in science class and at McGilvra Elementary School. And our school teacher for that project came into class with a little board, wood, handful of 16 penny nails, and a spool of magnet wire, and a couple of 1.5-inch dry cells that are about 2 inches in diameter, about that high. They used to use them for doorbells. And before we left class, which was an hour and a half that time, we had electric motor running out of those nails, magnet wire, and a doorbell. When I was 10, 11, and 12, I was about 9 years old then, I started bringing radios home from the Goodwill stores downtown Seattle. And I had a neighborhood that was kind of interested in old radios at the time, hot water cans, and things like that. We'd bring them home and switch tubes around, find loose wires, make them work. We also got involved with these little portable battery radios about this side. They had a little button on the front. You push it, the door would open up and start. Sentinel was one of the brands that I happen to remember. And we had those working on their little 1.5 volt and 6 to 7.5 volt batteries in them. And they were kind of fun to take out to the beach because they were portable. You didn't need a power cord or anything like that to go with it. And then when I was about 13 to 14 years old, my uncle, the commercial fisherman, gave me a 666R triplet multimeter, little handheld thing, and it was really, really cool. And about 2 weeks later, he gave me my first receiving radio, and it was a Helicrafters S38. And I listened to that a lot. But I listened to ham bands, and mostly 80 meters, because I had a piece of wire out my bedroom window going alongside the house. I really loved the band spread on that Helicrafters because it had such a sharp frequency tuning ability that it was really fun to listen to these hams. It was interesting to listen to these guys be hams.
How old were you then?
I was between 13 and 14. 15, I started Garfield High School and found out they had a radio club there. That was one of my elective classes, is the radio club. It was actually called electrics class, but it was more electronics. And then as after school, they had a radio club, which later on I became president of. I learned quite a bit about electronics, and I was really, really interested in becoming a ham. But I found out I had to do code, and my hearing was really crappy. So they didn't have a class book for radio, so I went down and bought my first book right here. It says 1952, and it's a Radio Amateur's Handbook. The original I gave to the radio club at Tacoma, and I like to reference it so often because it's got so much elementary stuff in it. That is, when I later taught the general class, I referred to my 1952 Radio Amateur's Handbook. We had a SX42 receiver by Helicrafters at the radio club, and we could come in after school and listen to that all we wanted. During that period of time, a magazine called Radio TV Experimenter. I built my first 1-tube radio out of that darn thing. And I brought that to school, and my teacher about blew his mind. He thought, this is really cool, kid can build something out of a magazine. I thought it was cool. I didn't think I could pass the Morse code. I tried to learn it, and I eventually did become a general. I memorized the darn Morse code. But I bought this book there while I was in school, in high school. Graduated in '54. It was a '52 model. I went down and took the third class commercial radio license. And I found out that would entitle me to be a DJ, but I didn't give me a radio station. But it's good for 3 or 5 years. It was a nice piece of paper that we put on the wall in the radio club at the school, and everybody thought that was cool because not many people had ham licenses or commercial licenses in high school, though I did have a couple of classmates. One was Perry Lind. His dad was a chief engineer, radio station KOL, 1300 on the dial. And Jim Hass, his dad was chief engineer KIRO over on the islands over here. I went to Hass's house, and he had a Collins Gallon rack mounted in his bedroom. Gosh, it was beautiful. And he had a horizontal H antenna. It was just outstanding. I decided I should probably eventually get a ham license. But while I was still 17, I got an after-school job as a bench technician at Scientific Radio and TV. And because I was a little bit knowledgeable of electronics, they said I needed a vacuum tube voltmeter or a better voltmeter than I had. My triplet just wasn't up to stuff. So I got a Heath kit, a model V7, and put that together, and that was my bench tester there. Then I got a job after I got educated, which was about 3 years. I went to UW and took engineering. I got a job at John Fluke Manufacturing Company as, again, a bench tech.
What year was that, more or less, that you worked at John Fluke?
About when I was about 20 years old.
Which is what year would that be?
Well, let's see. I was born in 1936. Adam, I'd be about 56, 1956.
Okay.
That sounds about right. I met a fellow at the Puyallup Fair Radio Club booth. The guy, his name was Rich Manson, N7ANF. And a year later, I said, you know, the radio club, do you think they'd be interested in a 100-watt Motorola compass station, complete with antenna and hardline and all that other good stuff? He said, I got a guy that I can put you in touch with. His name is John Robson. He put me in touch with it. I went over and saw him because it was Saturday. He was there, and I hooked up my trailer, and we together loaded that compass station, the base, the mobiles, coax, antenna, all on my trailer, and hauled it over to the radio club. And John asked me what I knew about radio, and I said, well, I had a little experience at Fluke and Scientific Radio, and I was in the radio club and always interested in it. He said, you ever become a ham? I said, no. The code always stopped me. He said, even back then they had the no-code technician license. I said, yeah, but I wasn't ready to go beyond technician, and I didn't know much about the technician license. Equipment wasn't near what it is today. He said, well, here's what I'm going to do. Here's a technician license manual. Take it home with you as a gift. Read through it, see if you like it. If you don't like it, give it back. If you don't, keep it. I read it. I signed up for the next test, and I passed it. I became a ham. I think it was AD7VL is what they gave me as a call sign. And then I said, hey, what am I going to do for radio? He said, well, do you just want to be a technician all your life, or you want to go up the ladder? I said, I'd like something I can do more than just technician. He said, well, I recommend the one I have. And it's kind of pricey, but I said, what is it? He said, it's an ICOM 706 Mark II-G. It says it does HF, VHF, and UHF. And with your technician license, you can use VHF and UHF. I said, how much is it? I shuddered a little bit and went down and bought one. I still have it. It's out in the shop. But anyhow, so after being a technician for a little while, I decided that I'd like to use some of these other frequencies on this nice radio I have, because it's a damn good radio. So I got a general license manual. I took a class and read my book and read the license manual. And it's simple. Anyhow, I got a general class, and then I got my AD7VL license call sign because I could do that. Oh, I joined the radio club at Tacoma then.
What year did you join the radio club at Tacoma?
2003.
Thank you.
2003 and on. I like to volunteer, and you might ask why.
Why?
It's because you get involved, you grow, you learn, and it's fun. And other than that, there's nothing, you should not volunteer. But I think you should volunteer. And so I started volunteering as trying to help solve the antenna launcher problem for the field days. They had one of the weirdest things to chop potatoes. And I blew up several bags of potatoes. I really did. Anyhow, the very first one that I had to put up a HF station at my house. And so the clubhouse had one that ran with rubber bands. A tripod, and you drove back, and you had a little, like a slingshot. And it did the job. Took all day, but it did. It got the antenna in the thing. I spent several years developing ones that would use everything from weighted golf balls to weighted tennis balls to my current one, which is a 4-ounce piece of plastic with an end on each end. They're very inexpensive and they work real well. As maybe you know, Dave, they work pretty good, don't they?
They do. In fact, Steve installed the 150-foot long doublet at my house.
Well, you should have seen how much fun I had blowing up potatoes by putting 100 pounds pressure behind them to try and get a little bit more. I'd wrap them in a sock. I'd soak them in oil, send them down the barrel. The potatoes are fun for beach work, but not for if you want to accomplish something. Also started volunteering for the Boy Scouts for field days, West Jams, certain scout functions. And whenever I was doing that, since I didn't know what I was doing, I always established a VHF and an HF station, which required 2 radios. In the evening, we would set up in a tent, and at 10, 11 o'clock, we'd get on on 80 meters or 20 meters and talk to hams all over the United States just for fun. Worth Gurley, W7WG, and I used to do that. I used to get him involved because he liked to volunteer for Boy Scout stuff too. And I miss that guy. I don't know if we're going to live to be 103, but he sure did. Anyhow, we used to get, for the ones, some of them, would get a special event station. There's a W7 Juliet. You get a special event, and it's good for 2 or 3 days, and you can get people from all over the country to call. I can remember many people saying, don't you need another letter, your call sign? And I'd say, oh, well, if this wasn't a special event, it wouldn't be required. But this is a special event, and that's why there's only one letter in the call sign. I thought that was kind of neat. But anyhow, volunteering is neat. Next thing I started to do was I volunteered for help with the kitchen remodel. These were several members involved, and most important was N70MS. Donated the kitchen cabinets, the appliances, the plumbing supplies, and nothing would have happened, I don't think, if Ferguson hadn't donated all the appliances and the cabinets. My small efforts were helping him remove the cabinets from Al's house and removing the hot water tank that was in the clubhouse and installing a new one and installing the kitchen sink and the plumbing that was required for that. And so the next thing that happened that I did volunteered for was the furnace went out, in the electric furnace in the clubhouse. And I know a little bit about those darn things. And so I found both heating elements were burned out, and it was simple to repair. And brought it before the board, and they thought that was a pretty good idea, just replace the two little pieces of wire. And then the next thing was someone vandalized a window upstairs in the radio room upstairs, and it was a single pane window. It didn't open, but on the second floor, and as large as it is, it's pretty good size. It was kind of spendy to replace. So I had about 13 rental units, and I had a house, a small house, about the same size as a radio club, only one story, and had all windows, all thermal pane windows put in that thing for around $2,000. So I got a hold of my friend. I said, give me a price on doing all the windows here, after I went to 2 or 3 different window places in Tacoma and found out that for double the window place replacing the radio room, I get every window in the whole damn building double windows and open if I want. So every window that's practical to open will open now. Wow. And that was about 2/3 of them didn't open.
Wow.
Yeah, even the one for the stairways, it opens now. It didn't used to be that way. And the next thing that happened was I was out looking at the roof on the building, and there was no sand on the shingles on the south side. Well, this is 10 years ago, 12 years ago. And I'd bought several roofs since I had 13 houses. You get once where I had my roof. Well, I had a neighbor, Bob White Roofing, who I said, Bob, I buy a lot of windows, doors from you. What can you do for our radio club, which is a nonprofit? We don't have any money. We had enough money for the summer run that year to cover the whole roof. Well, a brand new roof, and that means tear it off and do it right, not a roof over the top of another roof. So about this, shortly before this, I found out there was a radio club out in Spanaway where I'd built my new house, and it's called Twin Firs Radio Club, is what it's called. There's about 10 members, and they all had technician licenses, and they all had 7,300 DICOMs. Would you guys object if I use the facilities here to put on a general class? I said, heck no. Matter of fact, several of the people that were technicians were interested in that. So I advertised it at the radio club in Tacoma and ended up with a class of 12.
Wow.
11 ended up with licenses. One of them is our current president. We had a lot of fun at that club. We had a key contest at the radio club in Tacoma, this one, where Rich Patrick challenged the club at one of our open meetings when we had 50, 60 people at the library annex to make a 90% wood key, and we'd have the contest run, I don't know, 3 weeks or something like that. And I turned them all in, and I had some really, really good-looking keys for competition. It was so much fun doing this stuff. The every year with the Boy Scouts, the jamborees or West Jams, and they're in between. Sometimes they have things out of Ski Park Lake or some other place, and you go out there and shoot an antenna for the HF. And I used to take my Morse code key out there, let the kids play with that. The benefits of volunteering are really, really good. It gives you a lot of personal satisfaction, and you get a lot of every minute you spend is worthwhile, in my opinion.
So a couple of questions for you, just in closing.
Okay.
What advice would you give a new ham today that's trying to get started in ham radio? What kind of piece of advice would you give somebody today?
Get a technician and then get a general and volunteer with everything you can possibly volunteer with. You'll get 10 times the work out of, and pleasure out of what you do in effort. It's a win-win situation. You're going to grow from it. You're going to have a heck of a lot of fun. And you'll also meet some people who are pretty friendly.
All right. Well, thanks so much for your time today, Steve. I really appreciate it. You did a great job. And thank you so much.
I enjoyed doing it. Well, thank you for taking the time to come out and do it.
You're very welcome.
It's a really nice outfit you have. And it's a very, very expensive outfit. And your time is really worth a lot more than you're getting paid for this interview.
Well, thank you very much, Steve.
More than welcome.